What is up, everyone? StonePost34 bringing you more of Growing Up with StonePost. Real quick about this gameplay. This is the 3v3v3 team gameplay, and we do pretty good playing hardpoint, and I get so jacked after I play this. I almost have to like put the game down for a little bit because it's so intense. It's ridiculously intense. And anyway, it's a good gameplay. It's a little bit longer. That's why I chose it. So anyway, my story, if you watched my last video, was I mentioned, telling a story about how I got disowned by my parents. Yes, my parents, StonePost34's parents, for 10 years. And yeah, that's a decade. And we can I'll get into the details here in a second, but it all stemmed from my parents' expectations. So this may be a life lesson too. Don't put your expectations on other people. Let them live their own lives. And my parents had ridiculous expectations for me, like stuff that they wanted me to do that I didn't want to do necessarily, but they wanted me to do. They thought I was going to be a doctor, and I was pre-med. They wanted me to marry the pastor's daughter, which I didn't want to. And I say that in general. There were a couple daughters that they kind of force-fed me, and I'm just like, no, this girl is not for me. You don't understand me. I mean, yes, she's a nice lady. I need excitement. I need to be challenged. I don't need a person that just says yes all the time. That's not what I want. That's not how I'm built. So these girls never worked out. And I got to tell you, because of that, there was only a handful of girls I brought around my parents, because I didn't want the questions, the 20 questions. I didn't want them, getting in my business, and all that. So long story short, I meet my wife through a mutual friend. Actually, the friend was Heather, but she went to high school, junior high, and elementary school with my wife. And she introduced us. It was actually at a KU football game, playing Nebraska. It was '99, and it was October 30th, and it was daylight savings time. I remember all this stuff like it was yesterday. So we meet, we hit it off. We basically date from the day we met to now. I mean, we're married, but it was just easy. It was perfect. If it's not easy, it's probably not the right one. So it was just great. So I'm excited for her to meet my parents. And I got to tell you, back then, I smoked, I drank, I partied, I worked hard, did all that. And my parents knew it. I didn't flaunt it in front of them. I just, did my deal and kind of stayed away from, I didn't drink in front of them. I didn't smoke in front of them. But anyway, so I bring my wife over, and actually her parents came over. It was cookout July 4th, and we did all that. It was good. My parents never really said anything. They weren't like, oh, we just love her, she's great, she's perfect, and that's why I didn't bring girls around them. So they never said anything, which was fine. I didn't really expect anything, and I didn't want them to say anything negative, so if you don't have anything nice to say, don't say anything at all. So anyway, I remember I was so excited. I told my wife within a month or 2 months of dating her or being together that I was going to marry her. I knew I was going to marry her. And I told her that. I remember we were out one night, and she just started crying, and I'm like, no, I'm serious. When I say something that I'm going to do it, I actually do it. And I believe that strongly at that point in my life that she was the one, and she still is. So I get the ring. I'm so pumped. And I call my mom, and I'm like, hey, let's go to lunch. Is Dad in town? My dad traveled a lot. She's like, yeah, Dad's around. In fact, he wanted to talk to you, too. I'm like, oh, okay, cool, whatever. 2 birds with 1 stone. So we go to Panera Bread, just here in town, and sit down. And my mom's like, yeah, so what'd you want to tell us? And I said, well, Lee and I are pretty serious, and I think you guys know that. And yeah. And I said, well, I bought a ring, and I'm going to ask her to marry me. I've already met with her dad, and by the way, definitely do that if you're a guy. You got to call the dad. You got to go meet with the dad and ask for his permission. I'm so old-fashioned like that. You have to do it. I'm just telling you. Otherwise, you're a douchebag. And my mom, the whole body language at that lunch changed in a millisecond. My mom crossed her arms. My dad scooted away from the table. And basically, my mom looks at me and she goes, well, all we know about her is that she smokes and she has a tattoo and lives in Kansas City. And I'm like, whoa, someone just pulled the bitch card. And I was pissed. I was so mad. I said, well, I'm sorry you feel that way. That's not going to change my decision. And anyway, progress a few more months. I get the ring. I owed my dad some money. I owed him about $9,000 for some classes, real estate classes I was taking. I had to put tires on my car, all that, and I bought the ring. And I show up. I'm still excited. I'm still trying to play positive and stay positive. And so I bring the ring over and I show my dad and my mom. My mom's like, "Oh, well, that's pretty." And my dad looks at me and he goes, "Well, I guess I just bought her engagement ring because I owed him money." I'm like, "Oh my God!" I mean, you couldn't say anything ruder to me at that point, and I was so mad. So basically, they had really turned me off, and we had sold her property up in Kansas City. We were going to buy a property here, and we still have it. We rent it out, but so we went ahead and bought it, and I wasn't going to pay. I was living with my brother, paying $900 a month in rent, $450 plus utilities, and I just decided, you know what? We're getting married in like 3 months. We're moving in together. I don't care. My parents had pissed me off so bad at this point that I was just like, I'm done. I'm done. You guys have lost all my respect. I know you're religious. And so I did. I moved in with her. They were hysterical. I mean, you can't even imagine how mad they were. Just hysterical. Call me up. We need to have a meeting. I'm like, okay, whatever. So, I mean, at this point, I totally checked out on my parents. I'm like, dude, I am done. I can't do this. You guys basically are trying to control me. I'm like, I think I was 24 at the time, 23, 24, I don't know. And I said, I'm done. I'm done. And so we show up to the house. It was right before I had to go to a softball game. And I said, well, I wanted to talk to you guys too. And my parents are like, okay, well, we just want to let you know that either you guys get married now or move out and quit living in sin, or we're not coming to your wedding. And I said, well, actually, that's what I wanted to ask you about, is if you were coming to the wedding. And they said, well, not at this point. In fact, God has told me, my mom said this, quote, unquote, God has told me to act as his right hand in your life. I'm like, oh my gosh, are you kidding me? Is this really happening? What a fail that was. I said, is this really happening? And we get up and I said, I love you guys. And this is probably going to be part 1 because there's a whole bunch more. So this is part 1. I'll do part 2 and upload it too. But I said, I love you guys. And I left. And that was it. Oh, no, I said to them, I said one thing. I said, well, I'm sorry you guys feel this way. I said, but I got to tell you, the only person that's going to keep you from getting in your car and driving to Kansas City for that wedding is you. You're definitely welcome. I just needed to know because we're getting ready to order the invitations if you were coming. And I did not want to put your name on there if you were not going to be there. And they said, well, you have your options, and if you don't choose to do either of those, then we will not be there. I said, well, that's not an option for me, so I guess you guys won't be there. And that was pretty much the end of it. And I'll progress through in the second part. I'm sorry this got so long, but gosh, I mean, we're talking 10 years. I'll progress through the second part, and you won't believe some of the crazy stuff. But anyway, guys, I appreciate you watching. Take care as always. This is Stone Post 34.
Are you still talking?
That's the one that loves faggots.
Shoot her down!
He loves faggots.